Hello. It's a great honour and pleasure and privilege to be here, and I'm grateful to the British Council and to the Korean Arts Council. And I really hope this clicker is going to work and I'm not going to get muddled up with my slides. So, as you just heard, I have various jobs, and I've only been doing this one for Quick Reads till quite recently, and before that I worked for Waterstones, which is the main book retail chain in the UK, and I did that for 10 years. I worked in 7 different bookshops, and then I did a variety of jobs in our head office, lots of which were around organising events and doing PR and doing author events where lots of people queued up from very, very early to come and see our authors. So it's very enjoyable to be here and be talking about books with you all. The first conference I ever spoke at was in London, and it was when I worked for Waterstones, and I spoke to a conference of publishers, and I introduced myself to them by saying, my name's Kathy, and I like talking to strangers about books. And I feel I could do the same now, and it's very nice to be here, because this is the furthest I've ever gone to talk to strangers about books, so it's very exciting. So to move on to Quick Reads. And Quick Reads, and the sentence there is start a new chapter. So the challenge is that in the United Kingdom, 1 in 6 adults find reading difficult and may never pick up a book. Within that 1 in 6 people, there are a lot of variations about how difficult somebody might find reading. So some people may be able to read at a functional level but not be able to read for pleasure. What we also find is that there are many people who can technically read but don't choose to read. And we look at the reasons why that is and try to bring those people to reading. I like to think that our mission is to bring the pleasures and benefits of reading to everybody. So what is Quick Reads? Quick Reads is a collection of short, accessible books written by well-known authors. We're a groundbreaking and highly successful literacy initiative, and we're now in our 7th year. We also have an outreach program that brings Quick Reads books, together with a wide range of supporting resources, to the people that need them most. We have a yearly list, so every year we publish a new selection of books, and then we do a range of activity around it. So the books themselves, the books are all bite-sized books by big-name authors. I have a set with me here in my bag, so if anybody wants to come and ask me afterwards what they actually look like, I can show them to you, and you'll see the size. The books are full of action and emotion, but they're written and edited to reduce barriers to reading for people who are less confident. And that's a really crucial part of what we do. We like to feel that we offer an entire reading experience, but to people that would have difficulty accessing that if it were in a more complex form. One of the things I get very excited about is the idea that we're enabling everybody to access the same cultural experience in the same way, even if they have a very different skill level. And we have over 70 titles available. So the books are made available for sale. They're sold in bookshops. They're sold online. They're also available as e-books. They are also available in libraries. And then we have a wide outreach program where we do work specifically with them. And the people that we reach through our outreach include English for speakers of other languages, and the British Council have done lots of really brilliant resources that go with the Quick Reads, with activities that people can do to go with them. We also work with learners who have learning difficulties or disabilities, in workplaces with unions, in further education colleges, in libraries where we do lots of events, in hospitals. We get lots of feedback that our books are used by people who are or have been very big readers, but who, possibly because of illness or possibly because of a medical treatment, find it difficult to maintain their attention span over a longer work, but don't want to be denied the comfort and pleasure of reading whilst they're recovering. I heard from somebody very recently who was undergoing chemotherapy, which does terrible things to your attention span, but she also found it very practically difficult because books had always been where she found comfort, so the fact that she couldn't do that made her feel very sad. So when she discovered quick reads and realised that she was able to maintain her attention through the book, that cheered her up a lot. I also heard from somebody whose mother had had a stroke, and one of the effects of stroke is that it can take away a language ability, and her mother had taught herself to read again by using quick reads. We also do a lot of work in prisons. If 1 in 6 people of the UK population struggle with literacy, in prisons that number is at least 1 in 2. So half of people, if they are in a prison in the UK, has a literacy difficulty. And many people have very low literacy levels. The prison work is so important for lots of reasons, but because reoffending is very linked to whether or not somebody has a job, and somebody's ability to get a job is very linked to whether or not they have skills. One of the things we really find in prisons is it's a very... I find sometimes people tell me that I'm obsessed with prisons, and I am, because everything about literacy exists in microcosm in a prison. The causes of low literacy exist, and then the effects of low literacy all find their logical extension in a prison. And so it's a really good way of, or a really sad, really good way of showing how reading works, because on the one level you have the technical ability to access language, which is incredibly important, because in prison, like in life, everything is about filling in forms. To be able to access service, you need to be able to read and write. But then you also see the softer benefits of reading. So we get lots of reports about prisoners who've started engaging with reading. They are able to empathise more. And if you empathise with somebody, you're less likely to want to hurt them, and you're less likely to want to steal from them. We also find that people who have engaged with reading have become better at expressing their frustration. And if you can express your frustration verbally, you're less likely to want to express your frustration violently. So with lots of the work in prison is very profound. Military bases also, a lot of people who join the army do so at quite a young age and sometimes with not very high skills, and the army places a lot of emphasis on trying to teach them skills. Also care homes, and including with elderly people who again may find, we get a lot of feedback actually, that for a lot of elderly people, the weight of a quick read is very good, because just the heaviness of holding a full book can become difficult. And family centres, a lot of what Tom said was touching on the effects of family reading. And obviously, we often find that adults, one of the things that may seek them to become re-engaged with reading, an intervention will be if they have children and they may want a better and different life for their child, so that will encourage them to become involved with reading, and we try to reach people that way. These are our delivery partners. The core of what we do at Quick Reads is very specific and quite small, because we're a tiny organisation. We're effectively me for 3 days a week. That's why I have so many other jobs. We manage to do what we get done by working with publishers. So I talk to publishers, and then it's the publishers who publish the individual books in liaison with us and with our branding and with our look. But in order for the books to get out into the world, in order for these very good resources to get out into the world, we need to work with other people. And these are some of our delivery partners. I'm going to talk in much more detail about this tomorrow when we talk about creative collaboration, but I just wanted to mention at this point. So our impact, one of the people we work with is NIACE, and NIACE stands for the National Institute of Adult Continuing Education, and they are experts in adult literacy, and we've just had their report. The quote I'm going to read to you is from Carol Taylor, and she's the Director of Development and Research at NIACE. The reason for the ongoing success of Quick Reads is the overwhelming positive impact that this initiative has had. Each and every year we meet adults whose lives and attitudes to themselves and reading have been transformed. For the vast majority of learners with poor literacy, Quick Reads are the very first book that they have not only completed but enjoyed. And these are quotes from a lot of the literacy practitioners who we surveyed. Books have been excellent to encourage readers as they are fairly short with adult themes, so students are genuinely interested and engaged. Many of my learners can find something of interest from the Quick Reads range. The books are manageable for people with dyslexia or issues with their reading confidence. There are lots of reasons why somebody gets to adulthood with poor literacy skills, and those are very varied, but one very common theme is undiagnosed dyslexia, so something that won't have been picked up when they were a child, and possibly combined with a more disorganized family life. Because if somebody has very sort of responsive and responsible parents and a very good education, that sort of thing will probably be identified and solved at an earlier age. But if they don't get an intervention, then they can carry on and the situation can worsen into adulthood. We use the books to generate discussions, as a basis for making predictions, and to use as an understanding text resource. They are useful for a wide range of readers, for example, low literacy skills, busy people, so full-time workers or single mothers, ESOL learners, ESOL is English for speakers of other languages, teenagers, and reluctant readers. We recently had lots of very interesting feedback about teenagers because I hadn't really thought of our books being applicable for teenagers, but lots of teachers have told us that particularly the ones that are sort of with a male crime emphasis are really good for 14, 15-year-old boys who, sadly, aren't so much engaged with the Shakespeare that they're supposed to be learning. I use them with literacy learners, people learning to write, and ESOL learners. I take them to all my lessons across various teaching and tutoring jobs. They provide a platform for so many types of learning. I've used them to develop learners' skills in reading, writing, and listening. One of the ways they're often used if people have lower skills is that within a group situation they can be read aloud a sentence at a time. So people take it in turns to read through it and can help each other through it. And I've seen that done in a prison at a daycare centre. It was very moving, actually, watching people coach each other so that they could get through a sentence at a time. I don't think I ever take my love of reading or my literacy for granted, but I often find it very humbling and emotional to be with people who are struggling with reading and who are trying to come to terms with it. And I don't feel that lack of confidence myself with words and reading, but I feel it sometimes in other ways. So if you ever saw me try to park a car into a tight space, I use that experience to understand sometimes how people feel when they're struggling to get to grips with something. So in our survey, 95% of respondents felt that Quick Reads had provided additional benefits to their learners. And this is back to the distinction between the hard skills and the soft skills. So 85% of tutors thought that there was increased personal confidence on the part of their readers. And we get lots of feedback about that. And I think that's such an important part about what reading brings. Increased communication skills, 73%. What we often find is that people don't just learn about reading, they learn to talk about books. And in talking about books, that increases their ability to do it, their communication skills, but also the way in which they feel about themselves. Raised aspirations was 53%. Again, that's often quite closely linked to somebody's aspirations for their children, or if they're in something like a prison setting, their aspirations to lead a different life and to make behavioural changes. And 50% of people able to more support their children's learning, which again is a really a big motivating factor for people to want to get involved to help their children. And to flesh that out a bit, people said they saw improved self-confidence as people have something else to talk about other than TV shows, and children see their parents reading and copy them. And the biggest change is when adult learners complete a book for the first time in their lives, and it's a milestone that many never believed possible. One of my favourite quotes was from a woman who'd been going to a reading group in a library. And she said that when she started doing it, she almost ran away from the group. She went to the group and she wanted to leave. She felt so scared. But she did it. And her first step was just being able to stay in the room. It was the fact that she would sit in the room and not run off. And then now, she says, she discusses books all the time. And she discusses books as though she was born to it. And I find that such a significant sentence, because it shows how people believe that they're born to one destiny or another. And for many people, for more disadvantaged people, they grow up and they acquire a belief that they weren't born to be a reader, that reading isn't something for them, that reading isn't something that can belong to them. And I think that for this woman to change the way that she felt, and that she now feels born to it, and I know she will spread that feeling to her children and to other people around her, and I think that's a wonderful achievement. Adults who are becoming regular readers are beginning to understand the importance of being able to read, and how not having the skill becomes a barrier to so much. They start to appreciate how important it is for their children to learn, and for them to be able to support them so that the children can have better lives. So the next chapter, what happens to people when they've engaged with quick reads? So we found that 69% of learners went on to read other quick reads titles, and 68% of learners went on to read other books. And that's something we find very important. And one of the strengths of quick reads is that we manage to commission best-selling, very well-known authors to write the books, because then we often find that the next book somebody will read will be a full-length book of the author that they've just read in the quick reads version. And if they're widely available, it helps them do something like go to a bookshop and find them. Because again, if you don't read, bookshops are quite frightening. So the fact that the books are available and recognisable, and they can go in and say, ah, yes, I've seen that somewhere else, I know what that is very helpful. 40% of our learners also enrolled on other courses. We find this so much with people that haven't been involved in learning. When they get the bug, when they find out that it's something they can do, they then have a really strong appetite for it. Thank you. This is my favourite quote ever from all my quick reads evaluation. I felt as though I had climbed a mountain. I was very proud because it was the first proper book I'd read. I would imagine I'm talking to a room full of very literate people. That's why we're all here, because we love books and reading, and we love talking about books and reading. And I think sometimes for us, it's difficult, actually, to get into the mindset of somebody who doesn't. And one of the ways I often think about it is that for me, and I would imagine for lots of you, books have always been a source of comfort and joy and pleasure. And books, actually, are where I go if I need to know something. And books are where I go if I want to feel comforted. So if I have just crashed my car when I was trying to park it into the small space and everybody on the pavement laughed at me, I could probably cheer myself up and make myself feel better by going home and reading a book. But there are other people that don't feel that way about reading, and books for them have been a source of humiliation and possibly a source of worry. And so really what we're trying to do is we're trying to work with that feeling and take it away and to convert it to something else. And so every time I find that we've done that, every time I read something where somebody says, I felt like I climbed a mountain, but I was very proud because it was the first proper book I'd read, I feel that it's been a good day. Thank you very much indeed for listening.